I have to say, that's probably one of the best transitions from like a quick little opener to then transitioning into the opening by having basically all the characters, but in this case, Tamaki, they're sleeping, but their phone is playing this radio station, and then they start playing this hit sensation song that is, well, just so happens to be the opening song to the anime. Then it plays the opening, and then it just transitions as if, oh, wasn't that a great song? There was something about that I just really appreciated. I thought it was just such a clever way to introduce the opening song, but as if it was actually a part of their world. It's a little simple thing, but those little simple moments can really bring a smile to your face as it did for me. And I have to say, I think the idea of rumors was probably the best idea that this show and I guess the game had, because it is so interesting how every single week we can have either a new rumor, or in the case of this week, two rumors, the idea of a radio tower and an invisible girl. Those are so interesting, and it kind of feels like there's so many ways to continue to flesh out the story by linking up to the central story of missing sisters or missing friends, things like that, a cult. That's always going to be important, and eventually you'll probably solve that issue in that case at hand, but the idea of constantly having new rumors pop up and just discovering them, it keeps this cast feeling like they still have a purpose even outside of their central story, which I think would give this game and the anime in general a very long life cycle, should the anime get a lot of episodes and the game just continue to be popular and can continue to make more and more content. I just feel like there's just such an unlimited amount of ways, even more so than even the original anime, to continue to flesh out this very interesting city with so much mystery and just kind of uncertainty about it, and that makes it really interesting. I thought this episode would be primarily dominated by this invisible girl rumor, which I think definitely it still does, and I think kind of Tamaki represents the invisible girl, someone who eventually was just kind of shunned away after enough time that pretty much just faded out of people's minds as if she was an invisible girl. Which it kind of does relate to her whole new school situation in a pretty interesting way, I have to say. It just kind of feels like it's such a high school, just school in general. It's a lot of bullshit you got to put up with, and just, you simply got called out by a teacher to basically go help your friend who was, well, getting a little too rough with the other students, and now people think you're a troublemaker and just immediately won't associate with you. As you can clearly see, I mean, these people were wanting to basically invite her out for lunch, but she had plans, and it would have been completely fine, but Felicia got into some trouble. And it's interesting to see how they're handling the idea of, it almost feels like, could Tamaki become the invisible girl or something like that if she gets shunned enough? Or is that just something that's going to relate to a separate story? You don't know, but the idea and the potential is always there, which makes this anime and this new Madoka project just so interesting. I mean, Felicia herself, I think, is amazing for how she's growing. I mean, this is a character who used to just sell her body as a mercenary. Like, that's all she would do. She would fight and she didn't have true connections. But now she's working at a restaurant. Sure, she's still rough around the edges. She still shakes down even her friends to get a bite to eat. But you can definitely see the potential in her character, especially since the reason she got into a little bit of a rumble was simply because people were talking bad about those that she cares for. It's interesting, and I really like Tamaki's mindset of not really worrying too much, because she kind of feels like she's definitely improving, and over time that just hostile nature will definitely tone down. And it's not like she was being a mercenary or anything. She was doing something that, yeah, she shouldn't have done, but it still feels like she's definitely growing. And it kind of brings a smile to your face, being like, even though this is still a newer character for us and these characters in general, it definitely feels like there's a natural progression. And someone who's lost their family and friends, it kind of makes sense that she would naturally, quickly, at a very steady pace, start opening up in an interesting way to start making sure that she can stick by them and not be someone that they are, disappointed in or something like that. And with all that content, it was interesting by itself, but the whole radio situation, I was like, I'm glad they touched upon it, because there's no reason for you to kick off the episode listening to a radio station unless it was going to be relevant. And it's interesting how, if you go underneath the radio tower and you bring up your phone, you'll hear apparently, someone trapped or crying for help, but in our character's case, it seems like laughing and menacing, and how does it relate to the cult? I'm loving how they'll definitely hold your hand for a certain amount of time in any given episode, make you understand the rumor, get a good understanding, see, okay, this is what the characters are going to do this week, but then they'll throw you into the deep end without any notice, and you'll just be basically swimming as if you've never swum in the deep end before, and you're just basically panicking for your life, not knowing what we're seeing, why this is happening, and we need the next episode as soon as possible. And that's a good thing, in my honest opinion. It's not like they're just keeping us in the deep end 100% of the time until like the episode 13 mark. No, they definitely allow us to understand and see things through different characters' perspectives and, see some fun action, some fun slice of life. They definitely understand these character motivations and allow the stories to a deep enough level that it makes total sense. But there are moments throughout this episode where you're just like, what are we seeing? Why is this happening? How does it relate to the cult? And I think that's a fun way to keep interest in this series. A lot of times with any show, even by the episode 8 mark, you can feel burnt out, as if you're seeing, yeah, okay, all we have is we're having a girl look for a sister. That could be a lot of series, even with the Madoka name. That could be their entire goal, just finding a sister, lost sister, what happened. But here we have all these rumors, all these characters, all these mysteries surrounding this city, and in doing so, it makes it feel like every time we get thrown into the deep end, it almost is like we're seeing a new story, a new set of perspectives that we didn't know we wanted to see, but those are going to be interesting as we still progress towards the main goal, which is, of course, Tamaki's sister, and it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to relate to the radio, and then also how it's going to relate to the invisible girl, and just, will Tamaki become an invisible girl, or is she kind of immune because she's a magical girl, right? There's a lot of things happening, and it's interesting to see how different characters are picking up on the uncertainties and how certain characters are avoiding. I mean, it's clear because we've seen the cliffhanger after turning into what seems to be a monster, why some would want to, kind of part ways and things like that. But still, it's going to be interesting to see where they truly want to go with next week, because I thought after that kind of like confrontation, Nanami was going to smack some sense into Tamaki, be like, how dare you run off? But I was actually pleasantly surprised by the kind of emotional kind of like, it felt like they were friends. They truly have reached a point of friendship, and how, just getting this random spam mail day after day. It's been happening for a while, and many people, myself included, were like, what is going on? Why are you asking if you're a magical girl? And why do you need help? And why are you cutting off? And the idea that they just were like, okay, we're all here, it's safe to do so. Because even if a witch like popped out of their phone, they're all there, right? I mean, granted, this is Madoka, maybe a witch could pop out of their phone and cut off a head without a moment's notice. That wouldn't be surprising, but still, it made sense, and it's going to be interesting because it kind of feels like they introduced like a few different ideas with rumors all in this episode, or just with previous episodes they were definitely setting up for it. And I'm curious if it's all going to relate to one bigger rumor or multiple smaller rumors and how they're all going to link up at the end of the day. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'm quite interested. But I think what I'm most curious about is back when Mami basically was trying to kill Tamaki, right? She's like, that doesn't look right. I sense the witch. We gotta put her down. I thought she was trying to kill Tamaki, and maybe she still was, but there was a moment in this episode where she saves her life and then kind of parts ways. It almost feels to me that, based on the fact that we have Nami, who's been making some phone calls, she has a secret book, she's not letting in with Tamaki. I'm curious if maybe she's the one with a darker secret that Mami doesn't like, and if that's true, what could she be hiding? Now, this is obviously just me speculating, but it definitely has me curious because it almost feels like Mami doesn't see Tamaki as a threat, but maybe she does with someone like Nanami. I don't know, it's something that I've been kind of thinking about, and after this episode with just her quick introduction and then disappearance, I'm like, what is happening there? And I really don't know. I thought this episode was going to be pretty tame, to be honest. I mean, a good amount of the content was just transferring to a new school, they were cooking, they were laughing, it kind of felt like they were, it was kind of like Madoka Slice of Life edition, and that would have been perfectly fine because a lot has happened, and the fact that they've now all moved in, they kind of have this friendship, it would make sense naturally for the flow to have a little more downtime, and even though the downtime was there, it definitely spiraled out of control in an interesting way, and I'm still very happy that they're not just going the bloody route, because I've seen the bloody route for Madoka before, and I'm really appreciating that rather than just continuing to kill characters or torture characters, it almost feels like we're focusing more on the mental strain rather than just full-on blown gore and just ridiculous content, because even though I definitely would be fine seeing some of that within this project, I'm liking how we're really focusing in on the personal reasons and the fact that these girls aren't fearing that they're magical girls. They don't know the true truth about everything that's happened to them and what that soul gem that they carry really represents. So the fact that they don't know that and they're kind of oblivious but also have all these mysteries and uncertainties about the city, it kind of feels like we're seeing magical girls in such a weird way where they're not scared of being a magical girl, but they're not happy about it either. They're kind of in this middle ground, and in doing so, because they're interacting with the most interesting setting that Madoka has ever seen. I mean, this city is breaking all rules, all limits, and kind of is delivering the most full-of-life cast of characters that we've seen with this anime to date. I mean, it really does feel like it. There's so many personalities, it doesn't feel as isolated, and I love my isolated stories. I love the original, but there is something refreshing about the style seen here. And it definitely feels like I could watch 36 episodes of basically these characters with what we've seen so far and potentially more depending on how the story could get fleshed out. It's going to be interesting, though, to see where they're going to take it. I mean, the radio tower, Invisible Girl, the junk mail, like, what's going on? Is the junk mail from the Invisible Girl? Like, I don't know. There definitely is a lot, and there's definitely is uncertainty within even our own cast, but we're seeing some great character development. We're seeing some great action pieces. They're lasting longer than just a couple of super moves, which is really nice, and I mean, it still looks good, sounds good, and the characters are fun, so what more can you really ask for? But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, be it for fans of the game, anime originals, whatever you feel, do let me know. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.